Okay, let's unpack this. We are starting today not with some abstract academic theory, but with a really profound and, uh, frankly, a gut-wrenching realization that was shared by one of you.
Hmm.
You're a high-achieving B.Tech graduate. You've done everything you were told to do, the long nights, the high CGPA, the specialized courses,
We shipped all the boxes.
exactly, all the boxes. And yet, that traditional promise of a clear career path
Hmm.
just feels like it's not there. You have this crushing sense that your very expensive, very specialized education is, in a lot of ways, just obsolete. It's crumbling under the weight of the gig economy on one side and these massive AI advancements on the other.
And that anxiety, that feeling of being perfectly prepared for a world that simply doesn't exist anymore,
Right.
it's completely justified. It's not a personal failure, not at all. It's actually a very accurate signal of a huge, like a seismic shift in the entire professional landscape of
A
2026.
seismic shift. I
It's
like that.
because the entire social contract of labor has been fundamentally renegotiated. And the words we use, the basic vocabulary to define our professional lives, work, job, career, internship, salary, they just don't carry the same weight or meaning they did even 5 years ago.
And that ambiguity is just paralyzing, isn't it? So our mission in this deep dive is, well, it's twofold. First, we're going to be cartographers. We're going to map out and redefine those 5 foundational terms for the age of AI.
Give you new
A
vocabulary.
new vocabulary to describe this new reality. And second, and this is the important part, we're going to confront the central crisis head on. We have to understand why the market is currently in this bizarre situation where the demand for a reliable physical laborer, someone who cleans or manages real-world logistics, can actually exceed the immediate secure demand for a junior software engineer.
Which is so counterintuitive.
Totally. And this leads us right to what we're calling the Great Reversal. Why problem finding, just the ability to ask the right questions, is now so much more valuable than solution finding, which, let's face it, AI does for free.
Well, you can't solve this crisis by just, adding more skills to your resume. That's the old way. We have to achieve what the listener called the courage to see the truth. We have to move beyond that conditioning of being a student who just waits for instructions, and we have to transition into being an architect who designs their own value. And to do that, we need to dig into the roots of where these terms even came from, why they evolved, and how technology has now, well, broken them.
Okay, let's unpack this. Starting with the basics of how we define our professional lives. Let's get these building blocks sorted out, because if we can't define the terms, we can't really navigate the game that's being played.
Absolutely. When we talk about professional life today, especially for someone who's, just coming out of academia, it really helps to view these terms, internship, job, career, and work, as stages, like a natural progression.
Okay.
And each stage is characterized by a different expectation of compensation and output. If you can clarify this progression, it helps you identify exactly what the current social contract is actually demanding from you.
So let's start at the very first rung of that ladder, or maybe the first node on what you'll later call the lattice, the internship. In our source materials, this is very clearly defined as the learning phase.
Precisely. An internship is a contract of exchange. It's a short-term work experience, usually, anywhere from 1 to 6 months. Although now we're seeing these micro internships that are even shorter.
Right, like a few weeks.
Exactly. And its whole purpose is threefold: exposure, networking, and allowing both you and the company to, well, test drive a potential long-term fit.
Test drive.
Yeah. The primary expectation is high supervision and mentorship. The company is essentially investing their time in you with the hope of converting that investment into a future full-time hire.
And that brings us immediately to the critical compensation difference that defines this stage.
Mm-hmm.
The stipend versus the salary. And this is more than just words, right? It defines the entire legal and psychological contract.
Oh, absolutely. An internship typically offers a stipend. Stipend is defined as a fixed, usually lower amount of money, and its main purpose is to cover basic, necessary living expenses.
So like transport, food, maybe rent.
Exactly. Just the basics. It signals that this is a learning and observational role, and critically, because the intern is seen as being there primarily to receive training, stipends almost never include comprehensive employment benefits.
So we're talking no health insurance, probably no matching 401k or Provident Fund contributions, and very limited paid time off, if any.
That's right. But the implications of a stipend go deeper than just the amount. From a legal standpoint, and this varies, but in many places, a stipend can imply that the person isn't a formal employee. They might be a contractor or a temporary trainee.
And that matters a lot for taxes.
It matters enormously. If you're getting a stipend and not a formal salary with payroll withholding, you might be on the hook for managing your own estimated taxes. Or the company could classify you as an independent contractor, which shifts the entire tax burden for things like self-employment taxes onto you.
That is a huge detail for our listeners to get. A stipend is basically a signal, both legally and operationally, that says, we are supervising your learning, we are not yet relying on your independent production.
You got it. That's the core of it.
Okay, so once you navigate that learning phase successfully, you move on to the job. What's the fundamental difference in the contract here?
The job is transactional. It's immediate. It's defined as a specific role or a set of duties that you perform in exchange for payment. The whole focus shifts to tasks, responsibilities, and, meeting the employer's requirements.
There's a means to an end.
A means to an end. It's often seen as a short-term way to earn money, fulfill a function, or just gain a specific set of skills you can then market elsewhere.
And crucially, as we saw in the source material, a person can have many different jobs throughout their life that are totally unrelated. A job in graphic design, then a job as a waiter, then a job in tech support.
Correct. They're all distinct income streams based on you performing a task. The job is the concrete, daily activity. It's your immediate income. But when you zoom out and you look at that long-term sequence of all your tasks and roles, that's where the career comes in.
The career, then, is the grand narrative, the story of your professional life.
It is the long-term path. It's the sum total of your journey. This includes all the jobs you've held, all the skills you've accumulated, every title you've earned, and the progression of your responsibility over decades.
So the career is something you actively build.
Yes. It focuses on growth, on progression, and on achieving these long-term professional goals that span multiple employers and multiple roles.
So we can draw a pretty sharp contrast here. The job is what you do right now, like, I'm a data analyst at firm X. But the career is the field you're in. My career is in data science and analytics.
One is temporary and defined by a specific role. The other is decades in the making and defined by your cumulative mastery.
Exactly. And encompassing all of this is the most general term of all, work. Right. Work, the effort itself. Just the mental or physical effort you exert to achieve some kind of result. It's the activity.
And this distinction is maybe the most important one for the 2026 economy, because work can be paid, at a job, or it can be totally unpaid.
Like contributing to an open source project.
Or creating a portfolio website, or volunteering. This unpaid, self-directed work, this continuous effort, is what generates the proof of work that the modern market is demanding.
Let's just circle back for a second and hammer home that final crucial distinction between the two formal compensation types, salary versus stipend. Because this really defines the underlying social contract that so many graduates think they're entering into.
Right. A salary signifies a fixed annual amount, paid monthly or biweekly, but it implies a completely different relationship than a stipend. The main goal for the employer is securing long-term production and stability from you.
So the contract is built on accountability, on independent output.
That is the key differentiator. If you are salaried, you are expected to operate with minimal supervision, to deliver substantial independent value, and to manage your own time to get the required results.
And because the company sees you as a stable asset, you're typically included in all the comprehensive benefits: health, dental, paid time off, and crucially, access to those retirement vehicles like a 401k or PF.
Exactly. So to just sum this part up, an internship is a training contract paid with a stipend for basic living. A job is a transactional task fulfillment contract paid with a salary or wages. A career is your lifelong evolution of skill. And work is the effort that underpins all of it.
Understanding those distinctions is step one in seeing how the traditional career map has been completely redrawn.
That's right.
Okay, that sets the stage beautifully. Now here's where it gets really interesting for me. To understand why a B.Tech degree, a degree designed for that stability economy, feels so precarious today, we have to trace the evolution of the concept of the job itself.
It's a remarkable story.
It's a story of how we went from literal salt money to, well, a portfolio of fractional skills.
It's a profound shift that spans millennia. We can really break the history of labor into three major phases. In phase one, the historical roots, work wasn't something you went out and found. It was just intrinsically tied to your existence, your family, or your social caste.
Right. The sources confirm that in ancient civilizations, whether you're looking at the Roman Empire, the trade guilds of medieval Europe, or historical Indian caste structures, work and compensation were inseparable from your social identity.
Payment wasn't even standardized currency half the time. It was often paid in kind.
In kind, what do you mean?
You'd get paid in grain or housing or sometimes essential commodities.
And this takes us to the amazing origin of the word salary.
Yes. It comes from the Latin salarium. In the Roman Empire, salt was incredibly valuable. It was essential for preserving food, for survival. Roman soldiers, who were often stationed miles from home, were given a special allowance, the salarium, specifically to buy salt.
So it wasn't their main pay, it was just an allowance for this one critical thing.
Exactly. And it fundamentally defines that original social contract. Your compensation is directly tied to the essentials you need to keep performing. It wasn't about profit or growth, it was about survival and continued service.
And what about the original internship, the apprenticeship system?
Right, which was dominant from the 11th to the 19th centuries. This was the ultimate contract of commitment. A young person, often a teenager, was legally bound to a master craftsman for 7 years or more.
7 years. That makes a 6-month modern internship look like a coffee break.
It really does. And the compensation model there, it was almost entirely non-monetary. The apprentice got room, board, food, and most importantly, the master's specialized trade secrets and techniques.
So this period was like an extreme form of proof of work. It was validated by time and loyalty.
The whole goal was tradition. It was about ensuring a rare skill was passed down perfectly to the next generation. And it often became the apprentice's legal right to open their own shop once they completed it.
That's fascinating because it highlights that for centuries, the value exchange wasn't money for time. It was security and mastery in exchange for loyalty and effort.
Then came phase two, the industrial and corporate evolution. This spans the 1800s through the late 20th century, and this transition just completely disrupted that ancient system. Work shifted massively from the home or the small shop to the centralized factory.
This is where we stop selling our output. The shoe you crafted, the detailed clock, and we start selling our hours.
Precisely. The Industrial Revolution required standardization, predictability. For the first time, labor became fungible. People started selling their time, not just their customized output. The famous rigid 9-to-5 workday wasn't mandated by daylight. It was imposed by the operational demands of the machinery.
The steam engine, the assembly line, the punch clock.
The machine set the schedule, and the human had to adapt to the machine. The job in this environment became repetitive. The worker was just a cog in the machine. A career was still something reserved for, doctors and lawyers.
But that changes after World War II, right? The nature of the job evolves again, and it morphs into identity.
Yes. This gives rise to that iconic post-war social contract. The company offered you lifelong loyalty, secure employment, guaranteed health care, and a defined benefit pension.
A guaranteed retirement income.
In exchange for the worker's 40 years of service and just following the corporate hierarchy.
And that contract, where success was defined by climbing one single preset corporate ladder, that became the dream for an entire generation. That's the model our current university system is still, in many ways, optimized to serve. It's training students for a stable hierarchical structure that is now just fading away.
We also see the professionalization of the internship here. I mean, medical internships existed before, but it wasn't until the 1960s and 70s that big white-collar businesses adopted the intern concept widely.
Why not?
They saw it as an efficient, lower-cost way to scout college talent. They were basically applying the factory's efficiency model to the talent pipeline.
So we've gone from a job being a temporary, specific job of work, a little piece in the 1620s, to an identity-defining secure position in the 1970s. And now we hit the technological age.
Yes, and the permanence and predictability of that whole industrial corporate era model is just collapsing. Now, in 2026, we're in phase 3. The concept of the job is shedding its identity status, and it's rapidly evolving into a portfolio. The question of loyalty is gone, replaced by the necessity of agility.
The forces driving this de-jobbing of society feel relentless. You have the gig economy, normalizing short-term contracts, and then you have AI automating anything that's routine.
And these two factors haven't just bent the old rules, they've completely snapped them. They've blurred every single one of those foundational concepts we just established.
So let's start with the fundamental unit, work. You're saying it has been completely decoupled from time.
Completely. The 2026 paradigm no longer rewards you for being present, it rewards you for your output. The only work that remains high value is the work a machine cannot do.
So, If AI is handling the routine data entry, the code synthesis, the initial research, all that structured task management, what is left for the human? What is value creation now?
High-value human work is now focused on things like synthesis, context, strategy, and empathy. Think of prompt engineering, knowing how to ask the perfect question to get the best AI output.
Or system architecture?
System architecture, designing the framework where various AI and legacy tools can all interact safely. And emotional management, handling client relationships, team friction, organizational change. The moment a task becomes repetitive or routine, it is devalued. Your value is now proportional to the amount of ambiguity you can resolve.
And this shift has dramatically altered the nature of the internship. It's not a gentle introduction anymore. It's a high-stakes, rapid-fire audition.
Oh, absolutely. Companies are not interested in you getting coffee. They are interested in how quickly you can adapt to their internal tech stack, how well you can troubleshoot, and if you can immediately integrate their specific AI tools into your workflow. It's a trial period focused entirely on utility.
And this is why we're seeing the rise of micro-internships. These short project-based stints, 2 to 4 weeks long, they're becoming incredibly common. Why are companies embracing this so much?
Well, there are a few reasons. First, there's reduced legal risk. It avoids some of the complicated employee classification issues that longer internships can bring up.
Right.
Second, speed. They can assess a candidate's practical skills against a specific, immediate business problem much faster than waiting 3 months. And third, cost. It lets them access specialized, short-term talent without committing to a long-term salary and benefits package.
It's the ultimate form of rapid proof of utility.
Exactly.
So if the internship is a rapid audition, the job is transformed into a short-term contract. That security of 40 years of loyalty and a guaranteed pension it's largely a relic of the past.
In 2026, you really should see a job as an income stream that you get from renting your skills to an employer for a specific duration or a project cycle. You're brought in to solve defined problems. When that problem is solved, your contract might pivot, it might change dramatically, or it might just end.
So the worker is now an agile consultant.
Focused on contribution and project completion, not a permanent fixture in the hierarchy.
And this shift requires a fundamental reframing of the career. It's no longer that single ladder you climb vertically, hoping for the next promotion.
It's now the lattice. The source material really emphasizes this perfectly. A lattice involves moving sideways, diagonally, sometimes even backwards temporarily to pick up a crucial new skill.
Can you give an example of what that looks like?
Sure. Think of someone who starts as a coder in fintech. Then they move sideways to teach data science part-time. Then they leverage that teaching skill to become a training consultant for a healthcare tech company. And finally, they apply all that financial knowledge to enter climate finance.
That sounds exhausting, but also incredibly powerful. The value isn't the title, it's in what you call the red thread of transferable high-demand skills.
The systems thinking, the complex communication, the problem discovery, that's the thread that weaves through those diverse roles. The goal is no longer stability, it's radical agility and continuous mastery.
And this complexity has to be reflected in how you get paid. Salary is no longer just a fixed check, it's a complex total compensation package.
Right.
Let's break that package down. We still have fixed pay, of course, but that variable component is exploding in importance.
Yes. Variable pay or performance bonuses are now tied to highly detailed AI-tracked metrics. KPIs, OKRs. If an AI can measure your output, that output is now directly linked to your quarterly bonus. And that shifts risk from the employer to you.
And the benefits also reflect the market's recognition that skills just depreciate so rapidly in the AI age. We see mental health stipends, remote work allowances to offset home office costs, and critically, learning credits.
Those learning credits are perhaps the most telling signal of the new social contract. They're not just a perk, they are a necessary investment. The company is basically paying you to ensure your skills stay updated and future-proof.
So they're compensating you not just for the value you delivered today, but for the guarantee that you'll be able to deliver new value 6 months from now.
It's the cost of maintaining a machine that depreciates very, very quickly. To synthesize this whole progression, we've moved from labor defined by survival, salt and tradition, the apprenticeship, to labor defined by time and loyalty, the 9-to-5 job.
And now to labor defined by radical value and strategy, the agile portfolio. The ultimate goal is agility and mastery, which demands continuous learning and adaptation.
Precisely.
So now we arrive at the painful reality that our listeners shared, that deep frustration of having high marks in a specialized field like B-Tech, yet feeling completely unprepared for this professional reality.
It isn't just anxiety. It is a full-blown skills identity crisis.
And it seems to be rooted in this memorization versus mastery trap. The listener rightly points out that the entire education system, from elementary school right up to the B.Tech final year, was fundamentally designed to train humans to act as a database.
To efficiently store facts, follow established protocols, and repeat instructions perfectly.
And the brutal truth of 2026 is that this specialized skill set, the ability to be a factual database, is now virtually obsolete. Your laptop, using an AI agent like Gemini or ChatGPT, has exponentially better memory, faster recall, and higher factual accuracy than any human ever could.
This is the crux of the problem. If a student spent 4 years being rewarded for vomiting on exams, for their ability to perfectly regurgitate information and follow instructions, they were rewarded for excelling at the one thing a machine now does perfectly, for free.
The moment your primary value proposition is knowing facts, AI has just zeroed out that value.
Now, you did raise a fascinating challenge earlier. If facts are free, why are tech companies still paying billions for specific proprietary datasets?
Yeah, that seems like a contradiction. If the database is obsolete, shouldn't all information be worthless?
The key is context and vetting. Raw facts are worthless. Contextualized, proprietary, and vetted data is the new scarcity. A student knows what the tax code says.
Okay.
A valuable professional knows how to ethically structure an investment using the tax code in a specific proprietary context while navigating a gray area that AI can't yet interpret. The value is not in the data itself, it's in the expert judgment applied to the data. But that foundational skill of factual recall, that's gone.
And this distinction seems most acute in the software engineer paradox, the gap between being a coder and an engineer.
Oh, absolutely. Most B.Tech students are taught to code, to write syntax. They can take an instruction, write a function that sorts this data, and execute the syntax perfectly. But coding is now a commodity. AI is rapidly approaching perfection in writing syntax. It often generates code faster and with fewer basic bugs than a junior human.
So if I can write a perfect Fibonacci sequence or optimize a simple algorithm for an exam, I've really just transcribed logic.
Exactly. Real engineering, what we call architecture and systems thinking, is fundamentally different. It's not about writing the code. It's about deciding what code to write, where that code should live, and how it interacts with the messy, unpredictable outside world.
Can you give us a concrete example of an architectural problem that a high-achieving student just hasn't been trained to solve?
Sure. A coder is given a specification. Write a microservice that processes user payments and updates the inventory database. They execute the syntax. The engineer or the architect has a totally different task.
Okay.
They have to first ask, which payment gateway should we even use? Is the inventory system a legacy SQL database, or is it a new NoSQL cloud service? If it's a legacy system, what are the security constraints of connecting a new microservice to it? How do we design the system to handle 100,000 requests per second and manage the technical debt from that legacy system?
So they're dealing with integration, security, scalability, long-term maintenance,
Yeah,
the unknown unknowns.
the unknown unknowns. Skills you only get by fixing catastrophic crashes and managing contradictory demands from stakeholders. That lack of practical experience is the true gap between a replaceable coder and an indispensable, high-value architect.
This leads us directly to the listener's controversial but I think highly insightful observation. The demand for a physical laborer, a plumber, a skilled maid, a reliable electrician, can sometimes feel higher and more immediate than the demand for a junior digital worker.
This is a classic example of Moravec's paradox playing out in the 2026 economy. This paradox, first articulated back in the 1980s, is highly counterintuitive. It states that high-level reasoning abstract tasks like advanced math, chess, or writing basic code actually requires very little computational power for a machine to master.
Okay, that makes sense.
However, low-level sensory-motor skills tasks like folding laundry, navigating a cluttered street, making a bed, or fixing a leaky pipe require enormous computational resources and real-world intelligence that machines still really struggle with.
Because the physical world is just messy. It's unstructured, and it's governed by unpredictable variables like friction and gravity and object displacement.
Absolutely. Think of the dexterity required for a maid to efficiently and safely clean a unique, cluttered kitchen versus the process for a junior programmer to write a standard data retrieval script. The retrieval script is structured digital data. The cleaning requires real-time spatial awareness, object recognition, anomaly detection, and fine motor skills.
So in 2026, it is currently easier and cheaper to automate the basic output of a junior Java developer than it is to reliably automate a person performing complex physical tasks.
Right. Physical real-world labor possesses an inherent AI-proof physicality premium because the cost and complexity of automating those tasks is still prohibitive compared to automating basic digital labor.
And this systemic pressure, the devaluation of raw skills combined with the paradoxical value of physical skills, exposes what the listener identified as the well paradox, the critique of the edtech and coaching industries.
The idea that students realizing the traditional university well is drying up just jump immediately to the edtech well, expecting a different result.
Right.
But the sources suggest that much of this accelerated learning is just Degree 2.0, or what we call industrialized rote. They teach you how to pass the interview by focusing on pattern recognition, the perfect answer to the leak code question, but they fail to teach you the mastery required to handle the messy architectural problem.
They train a test taker, not an engineer.
Exactly.
I have to interject here because I personally experienced this frustration. When you talk about industrialized rote, I immediately think of that 3-day online certification I paid $500 for that only taught me how to read code I could already write. It taught compliance with the interview process, not competence in the field.
That's the perfect articulation of the paradox. The market no longer cares which well you drew from, the university or the edtech course, or whether you have a degree or a certificate.
What the market cares about is unfiltered proof of work. The maid is hired because of the proof of cleanliness she provides daily. The successful B.Tech graduate must provide the equivalent. Proof that they can navigate real-world chaos and build functioning systems that solve specific, expensive problems.
The solution lies not in acquiring more answers, but in mastering the art of asking the right questions.
This brings us to the ultimate necessary paradigm shift. We've moved entirely from the answer economy, where the person with the most facts won, to the question economy.
Where the person who identifies the most valuable problem holds all the currency. If an AI can generate 1,000 solutions in a second, the truly rare skill is identifying the single question that's actually worth solving.
And this directly changes how a graduate should approach the job market. We need to abandon the ineffective push approach and master the highly effective pull approach.
The push approach is the student's mindset, trying to force your standardized resume and your high grades onto the market, competing with thousands of other people for a predefined slot. It's just high effort, low yield.
So what's the pull approach?
The pull approach positions you as the rare solution to an urgent market headache. Instead of submitting a generic application that says, I have a B.Tech degree, please hire me as a junior, the pull pitch says something like, I analyzed your customer service tickets, and 30% of them are because of a friction point in your current app. I built a prototype on my laptop that resolves this specific pain point, and it could potentially save you X hours and Y dollars per month.
Wow.
The market pulls you in because you have identified a specific, expensive problem they didn't even know they had or didn't know how to articulate. But to do that, you have to master defining the real problem.
Okay, so let's define it clearly, using the source definition. A problem is the gap, the distance between point A, the current reality,
Like, our sales team loses track of leads after the second follow-up.
and point B, the desired outcome. We need a seamless, automated process that ensures no lead is dropped. The problem is the friction in the middle.
And the essential filter here is the distinction between the imaginary problem, the vitamin, and the real problem, the painkiller. This is where most aspiring entrepreneurs and professionals just fail.
The vitamin is nice to have. It's interesting, maybe it's innovative, but it doesn't solve a current burning pain.
Right. You might build an app that uses complex algorithms to suggest the optimal time for a user to take a nap based on their heart rate. People might download it, but they're not going to open their wallet or fundamentally change their behavior for it. It's a desire product.
The painkiller, on the other hand, is the burning house. It's a gap that is costing people time, money, or peace of mind right now. They are already frantically trying to solve it, even if they're using messy manual workarounds.
A perfect example of a painkiller is the small business owner who misses out on a time-sensitive government contract because their accounting software takes 3 days to generate the required compliance report. The pain is real, quantifiable, and urgent.
The market will pay to remove that pain instantly.
So we need to apply the wallet test to quickly differentiate. This framework helps you assess whether a problem is worth your time and effort.
The first test. Are people already spending money or time trying to fix this?
If the problem is real, someone is already dedicating resources to it. They might be hiring a full-time employee to manage the messy Excel sheet, paying a premium for a subpar legacy service, or spending their entire weekend on manual tasks. If they are already sacrificing time or money, it's a proven pain point.
The second test, which is critical. What happens if this problem is not solved today?
If the answer is nothing much, I guess I'll just keep doing what I'm doing. It's a vitamin. If the answer is I lose customers, I face a regulatory fine, or my company fails, it's a painkiller. The consequence of inaction must be severe.
And the third question, about simplicity. Can the problem be explained in one sentence of plain English?
Real problems are universally understood and simple to articulate. I hate checking 5 different systems to get one client update. My banking app requires 50 taps to pay one utility bill. Imaginary problems require these long, complex, technical explanations about features and capabilities. You have to keep it simple and painful.
In 2026, it seems like real, high-value problems tend to cluster around 3 core categories of pain that exploit the current limitations of both AI and legacy systems.
Category 1 is friction. This takes too long, or this is too hard. It's systemic inefficiency that burdens the user.
Can you give us a specific modern example of high-friction pain?
Sure, think about logistics and supply chain. Many mid-sized logistics companies still rely on disparate systems. One program for inventory, another for driver scheduling, a third for invoicing. The friction point isn't in any single system. It's in the manual process of a manager having to copy data from system A, manually type it into system B, and then verify it against system C.
That manual handoff.
That manual handoff is a high-friction problem screaming for an architectural integration solution.
Okay, category 2.
Category 2 is trust or risk. I'm afraid I'm doing this wrong. This pain point has absolutely exploded with the introduction of generative AI.
Because AI is fast, but it can be unreliable.
Exactly. The fear of AI hallucination, of the system generating a plausible but factually incorrect piece of data, is a massive source of risk in fields like law, medicine, or finance. The demand is now for human professionals who can act as the vetter or the auditor, the person who designs a system to safely integrate AI output while managing and mitigating the risk of costly errors.
So if I'm a lawyer, I will pay a lot of money for a system designed by a B.Tech grad that integrates AI drafting, but flags any section that falls outside established legal precedent, reducing my liability risk.
Precisely. And category 3 is information overload. There's too much data. I'm paralyzed.
The curse of the information age.
The student is paralyzed by 1,000 YouTube tutorials, unsure which one to start with. The corporate executive is paralyzed by a dashboard with 50 irrelevant metrics. The problem is not a lack of data, it's a lack of synthesis and prioritization. The high-value role in 2026 is the synthesizer who can filter 99% of the noise and present the 1% of actionable, contextualized information needed to make a decision.
So this means we have to actively shed the conditioning of the answer economy. We need to adopt the problem hunter mindset.
And the first step is to stop asking how and start asking why. Every time you encounter a clumsy process, interrupt your default student conditioning. Don't ask, how do I submit this form? Ask, why does it require 4 signatures when the data is digitally verifiable? The why exposes the friction, the risk, and the underlying solvable problem.
And this leads to the most actionable method for our B.Tech audience, the workaround method. We need to become like ethnographers, observing the clumsy habits of humans interacting with technology and processes.
Look for the telltale signs of human inefficiency. The moment you see a human acting like a low-grade robot, that is your target. When someone says, I have to copy-paste this from the CRM into Excel, then manually verify it against the old spreadsheet, or I'll just do this manually on paper to be safe. That manual act, that inefficient habit, is a problem waiting for an architectural automated solution.
Let's apply this workaround method to a specific field that's relevant to B.Tech graduates, auditing local government or university administration. Where might a high-value workaround be hiding?
Okay, take a local government's permit application process. Historically, people print PDFs, fill them out, scan them, and email them. A clerk then manually opens the PDF, reads the data, and types it into the centralized database. That manual data entry is the workaround.
It's a human acting as a robot.
Exactly. The B.Tech graduate who discovers this problem doesn't need to write a revolutionary new application. They need to build a simple, efficient tool using existing AI capabilities that automatically extracts the data from the scanned PDF and validates it against the database schema. That eliminates the $10,000 cost of the human clerk's manual labor. That is proof of work.
That is first principles thinking in action, breaking down the assumption. The assumption is often, I need a high-paying job at a FANG company.
But the core truth is you don't need the job. You need to provide value that eliminates a costly pain. First principles thinking tells you to look at the process, not the title. The value lies in eliminating the unnecessary steps, the friction that everyone else has just accepted as the way things are.
And finally, my favorite, the hate tweet audit. Anger is the loudest signal of a real expensive problem.
If customers are consistently publicly angry about a specific friction point, whether it's a clunky checkout process, confusing forms, or unresponsive customer service, that anger is pointing directly to a painkiller opportunity. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. You just need to search for, I hate company X because, and identify the common repetitive pain point.
That repetition confirms it's a systemic, expensive problem that hasn't been adequately solved. The reason you feel clueless right now, as a B.Tech graduate, is not because you lack knowledge, but because the world has stopped rewarding your training model. It's rewarding a new model, problem discovery.
By adopting this problem hunter mindset, you are immediately moving from being a passive database to an active architect who draws the new map. The profound realization you shared that everything is already available in this universe and our task is merely to discover the latent problems and the existing solutions, that's the ultimate guiding principle of the 2026 economy. You have to move from a creation mindset thinking you must invent something new to a discovery mindset, uncovering value that is already buried in inefficiency.
So we don't need to create a new career path. We need to uncover the value hidden under the way things have always been. Problems are discovered as friction, and solutions are discovered as the bridge you build between existing free technology, your laptop, your AI access, and an existing expensive pain point.
Your most crucial role in 2026 is that of the matcher. You match a painful, real-world problem found through diligent problem discovery with the right AI or tech tool for solution discovery. You are the architect who builds the bridge and shows the client exactly how much money they save when they walk across it. The world is overflowing with obvious manual inefficiencies that everyone has missed because they were too busy trying to memorize the answers on the exam.
You mentioned needing the courage to see the truth. The final, most difficult step is that transition from philosopher to builder. Don't wait for instructions because the instructions are gone. They will only be written once you have provided the proof of work.
So instead, we leave you with this final provocative thought. Take this realization that everything you need is already there and apply it immediately to your world. Look at a conventional system you interact with daily, your college's online enrollment portal, the local municipal tax payment system, or the scheduling software at your previous internship. Identify one specific irritating workaround, one moment where a human is forced to do something manually that feels like a robot's job, signaling massive inefficiency.
That specific manual inefficiency is your target. You have the laptop. You have the AI agents. Now find the target and build your first piece of unfiltered proof of work. Don't just understand the theory of the questioned economy. Become the one who fixed the broken reality. Good luck on the deep dive.